ECLAC project. The webinar is called Introduction to Climate Change and Disaster Statistics in the Caribbean. We are delighted to finally meet you all, even if it's virtual. And we're going to have very interesting panels and hopefully very interesting discussions for the next 3 mornings on such an important topic as climate change and disaster. We know it's a very important topic for the Caribbean. I remind all our panelists to stick to their allocated time. 1 minute before their time is over, and right when the time is over, they will listen to this. So I apologize in advance about this strict time management, but this is the only solution for us to allow fairness between the panelists and to allow for participation from all of you as participants. Please feel free to use the chat to ask any question, any suggestions, any comments. We're going to be monitoring it all the time. All the presentations will be made available every day on the website that I sent by email. My colleagues will also put it right away on the chat. And so without further ado, I will give the floor to our first guest for the opening session, who is the Director of ECLAC Statistics Division, Mr. Rolando Ocampo. Rolando, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning to all of you. It's a pleasure to be here. And good morning to all the distinguished panelists and colleagues from UNSD, from ECLAC, from CARICOM, my dear friend Philomen Harrison, and all the statistical organizations. It is a pleasure for me, and I'm honored to meet you again in this occasion, because today we are going to begin our project named Caribbean Relevant Climate Change and Disasters Indicators for Evidence-Based Sustainable Development Policies. Let me tell you that despite its low contribution for global warming, the Caribbean region is exceptionally vulnerable to negative consequences of climate change, particularly the small islands development state, the seas of the Caribbean that have continuously been impacted by hazardous events. We are experiencing the urgency for high quality and timely statistics and indicators to respond with evidence-based policy making to climate change and disasters effectively. A strong focus has been placed on measuring greenhouse gas emissions and other drivers of climate change. However, quality indicators in areas such as impacts, mitigation, and adaptation are crucial for addressing climate change in the Caribbean. Financial production and use of climate change and disaster statistics and indicators depend on a strong interinstitutional collaboration between various entities that develop, produce, prepare, disseminate, and use this information. This webinar brings together actors from national statistical offices, disaster risk reduction management authorities, and environmental and climate change ministries from various Caribbean countries. Therefore, it offers a valuable opportunity for participants to this webinar inaugurates an initiative that aims to build together a community of experts and knowledge sharing a space to help overcome the statistical and institutional challenges in the Caribbean region to produce and use climate change and disasters indicators. During these 3 days of intensive teamwork in this event, you will have the opportunity to improve your knowledge about the opportunities and challenges related to climate change and disasters indicator production in the Caribbean, to learn about the latest available evidence and measuring climate change and disasters in the Caribbean, and to explore the links between the statistical productions and policy making related to climate change adaptation and resilience. I can assure you that you are in the best hands with our environmental and climate change statistics unit team and here in ECLAC, and of course with our colleagues from ECLAC, from the Caribbean, my dear friend Diane Juarez, and conducting this, and their team, and the Caribbean regional headquarters are well known for their excellent work on sustainable development indicators. With the experience and support and advice from our colleague from UNSD, Rena Shaw, and of course, my dear friend, Philomen Harrison, the Director of the Statistics Program of CARICOM, we will offer you the most significant expertise on climate change and disasters indicators in this webinar and the activities to come under the project. I want, in this particular occasion, to thank all the panelists in advance for their contribution and for sharing the experience, and our ECLAC team for putting together a comprehensive agenda and insightful activities for this event. I invite you all to actively participate in this planning activity of this webinar. The contributions are valuable to the community and us to go to advance the production of quality climate change and disasters indicators and statistics in the Caribbean region. I want to thank you for your time, and I wish you a very productive webinar. And thank you very much for your attention. And over to you, Pauline.
Thank you very much, Rolando. So now I will turn to Dr. Philomen Harrison, who is the Director of the Statistics Program at the CARICOM Secretariat, which is one of our key implementing partners. Dr. Philomen, can you hear me?
Hi, good morning, Pauline. We will not use the video because of bandwidth issues. So good morning, everyone. I would like to welcome everyone to this webinar on behalf of the CARICOM Secretariat. I'll focus my remarks on the impact of climate change and the need for statistics, specifically environmental statistics as a major starting point. As you're aware, climate change has impacted and is impacting CARICOM countries as small islands and low-lying developing states, SIDS, manifested through warm temperatures, the devastating impact of hurricanes, tropical storms, and related extreme weather conditions. These occurrences in turn affect the health and general livelihoods of CARICOM citizens, food security, water supply, agriculture production, tourism, sea level rise, damage to biodiversity, particularly coral reefs, and of course, coastal erosion. Among some of the key issues of climate change that need to be attended to are emissions of greenhouse gases, use of fossil fuels, and the reversal of deforestation. There are limits to the ability or capacity to which countries can adapt to climate change. In this regard, countries such as those of CARICOM have committed to the achievement of internationally agreed to development goals, including the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. Climate change is a threat to the achievement of these goals and therefore to the achievement of sustainable development. Critically, monitoring and measuring the impact of climate change are imperatives that require timely, reliable official statistics. In this regard, special recognition must be given to the United Nations Statistics Division, UNSD, and particularly Rena Shaw, who through the first ever UN Development Account Project introduced environment statistics in the CARICOM region way back in 1999 under a joint project with the CARICOM Secretariat. This resulted in the first regional publication, the CARICOM Environment in Figures, which has been regularly published since that time and has now reached a total of 4 regional publications over the 20-year span. Furthermore, the CARICOM Secretariat has most recently published its first climate change statistics publication in 2020. This implies that we have been able to move from a core set of CARICOM environment indicators to a draft set of climate change disaster indicators under the 5 thematic areas of the FDS, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, namely drivers, impact, mitigation, adaptation, and vulnerability, which we'll present on during this webinar. These indicators can be considered during the group work that will be undertaken on draft climate change indicators. In this regard, the CARICOM Secretariat has commenced work on mapping the CARICOM core environment indicators, the CARICOM core SDG indicators, and the global FDS indicators. In this process, we intend to identify the initial work done on climate change indicators, which is still a work in progress by the UNST. Capacity building activities in environment statistics were also supported by other IDPs, such as the World Bank, as well as more recently, the government of Italy through ISTAT and from the Inter-American Development Bank. In the case of Italy, a series of webinars on environment statistics that were instructive to countries were held during the fourth quarter last year. And in the future, there will be follow-up webinars, including on climate change and on the Sendai framework on disaster risk reduction. The IDB contributed to assessments of environment statistics in 2 countries, to the development of a database system for administrative data exchange at the national level, and to a model data submission agreement that countries can adapt to strengthen interagency coordination nationally. While there have been marked improvement in environment statistics, some NSOs still require capacity building in this area of statistics, and specifically on the FDES, which is a building block to climate change and disaster statistics, as well as to environment economic accounting. Indeed, in the area of environmental accounting, CARICOM countries are not yet ready to engage in these activities, not only from the need to focus on the fundamentals of environment statistics and the FDES, but also relative to the need to implement the System of National Accounts 2008, which is still a challenge in many countries. Statistics inform policy. Therefore, environment statistics, the SDG indicators, climate change and disaster statistics will together play a crucial role in reducing the impact and in enabling, mitigating, and adaptive solutions. Through evidence-based policy formulation, it should be possible to effectively build economies that are climate change disaster resilient and to meet the numerous reporting obligations that have been agreed to internationally and regionally. Adequate human and financial resources, including statistical expertise in the area of environmental statistics, and the bringing on board of the several agencies that are relevant at the national and regional level must be addressed. This project is therefore a step in the right direction in that it can contribute to work already put in place or currently being implemented by other institutions in CARICOM. And in this regard, I wish to thank ECLAC for their contribution and for recognizing the need to build on this ongoing work. I would particularly like to thank Ronaldo and his team for this support. I would like to close by commending member states and associate members of CARICOM for their efforts. The core environment and SDG indicators were developed by these countries working as a group and approved by them, ranging from the Standing Committee of Caribbean Statisticians right up to the level of the Council of Ministers of Human and Social Development. The 5 regional publications were essentially possible because of work done at the national level that were then submitted to us so that we were able to research online. If countries do not implement, we'll have nothing to show for the efforts put in place. Here's hoping for a successful webinar. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harrison, for these words. So now we're going to start the introductory session. Thank you very much to Rolando and to Dr. Philomen for their opening words. First, for this introductory session, Mrs. Ryan Quiroga, the head of the Environment and Climate Change Statistics team in ECLAC, will present our team. And then Karina will guide us through your introduction as participants by using Slido. Ryan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Pauline. So welcome everyone, and I ask all of ECLAC team and consultants to please turn on their cameras so that you can see us. And in this way, we can actually introduce ourselves. So a few words to tell you about our team. We are actually working from the statistics division at ECLAC. This is where this development account project started. And that division is like the NSO of a country for ECLAC. So what we do is statistics. And in the unit that I managed and lead for 20 years, we have been working on environment, climate change, and later disaster statistics for the whole region of Latin America and the Caribbean. Granted, we've been more concentrated on Latin America, and now, thanks to this development account project, we have been able to start the work properly with you. So we're very excited, and we have worked very hard to put together this webinar of these 3 mornings that we will be sharing contents and substance that we hope that will be useful to you. And whatever you need, you can ask our team. Currently, if you put in your options of display, there's an option where you can see everyone who's turned on their cameras. So I don't know the name of that option, layout gallery, I guess. Somebody from the team can write it down. So in the chat, everything will be available for you to download and to share with your colleagues. And of course, you can invite more colleagues to join in if you find this as interesting and something that is useful for your work. So to present and introduce all of our team right now, we have, first of all, Abdullahi from ECLAC, who's stationed in Porto, Spain, in the headquarters of ECLAC at the Caribbean. I don't know if you want to say hi or something, Abdul, or just.
Morning.
Great, thank you. Perfect, thank you, Abdullahi. And then we have, of course, Pauline and Alberto and Daniela and Karina. They work in our team preparing all capacity building and training exercises, and also all of the products that Pauline is going to present to you shortly that you can also use. I don't know if you want to say hi. I mean, Pauline already said it. Alberto, Daniela, and Karina, we're stationed all in Santiago. And then we have Ms. Janet Gorgen-Martin, who's our senior consultant for this project, and she's stationed in Jamaica. Janet, do you want to say hi to everyone?
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. I hope it will be successful and useful for all of us.
Great. Thank you, Janet. And last but not least, our dear Cristina Klimstra, who we all call Kika, stationed in Argentina, also a senior consultant in our field. If you want to say something, Kika, please just go ahead.
Yes, hi and good morning, everybody, and pleased to join you and have a couple of days of hard work.
Okay, she's setting the stage. So as your captain is speaking in the airplanes, I hope that you can enjoy this journey, and please relax and enjoy what we have prepared for you and participate as much as you can and want. We are all learning here. We are learning from the Caribbean situation. You perhaps will be able to learn something about environment, climate change, and disaster statistics. So we will all share as a community of practice and learning all together in this journey that starts today with this webinar. So thank you everyone from the team, and please do not hesitate to ask through the chat if you need any assistance, guidance, materials, or anything that you want. That's what we're here for. We're working for this. So thank you very much, and back to you, Pauline, to start session 1.
Thank you very much. So Karina, I will now give you the floor so that you can introduce the dynamics so that we can all know a bit each other a bit better.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pauline. Can you all hear me very well? Is it okay? Great. So thank you, Ryan, for the great presentation. I think now it's the turn of the participants. We would like to know from you where you are and a bit of your background. So in order to do that, we have came up with engagement tool, so to say, and I will right now share with you a link on the chat, and I will also share now my screen. Okay, can you see it now?
It's loading.
Okay.
Yes, now we can see it.
You can see it, and please speak louder for everyone to hear you.
Okay, is it better now?
Yes.
Great. So I would like you to click on the link that I just shared in the chat, and then you will see some questions there, and you will have the opportunity to answer, and we will have the opportunity to see the answers of everyone. Yes. So first questions. Is it that, oh, wait. What is your country of residence? Oh, we see that we have someone from Antigua and Barbuda, from Belize. Wow, from Barbados, Dominica. So you see, those who are a bit bigger is because we have more people from those countries, and they have been entering more information into this question. So very, very nice to see the great variety here. From Curacao, great. Trinidad and Tobago, wow. We are very happy to say this. We were actually worried about how many countries will join the webinar, but I think it's very rewarding to see that you made it.
Yeah, this is great. I wonder if anybody has problems with the technological part, to ask Karina if you were able to copy the link so that you can enter this tool and respond to the question. Because we have, I think, 55 participants. And if I'm not mistaken, Karina, we have 26 answers so far. So feel free to ask for assistance if you don't know how to respond or how to enter this tool.
In case the link is not working, or you want to use your mobile phone, you can also use this QR code, or you can go to slido.com, and then with this number that appears here, 25217, you can also be able to answer those questions. So far we have 29 answers. See, Jamaica is dominating here the floor.
Great.
Great. So perhaps we can go to the next question and see, where would you place yourself? So here we would like to know whether you are more a data user, a data producer, or perhaps both. This will help us to understand the demand side, the supply side, and to have an idea what kind of information and kind of challenges we will hear from you during these 3 days of intense work. So we have mostly both. But data users is also growing. Yeah, I think we have a lot of institutions in the Caribbean who produce the data, and they also use the data at the same time. Definitely that's dominating. We have 21 answers. Great. Data users, it's moving a bit slow, but I think, yeah, the duality is dominating. Great. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to put them on the chat, and we will do our best to help you with this, the use of this technology. We are doing our best to try to engage everyone here and not leave anyone behind. Okay. Great.
Just like with Agenda 2030, not leave anyone behind.
Exactly.
Great, Karina. Yeah.
Okay. So, and then last but not least, we would like to know about your background, your professional background. So, are you an economist? Are you perhaps a biologist? Can you share with us that in one word, perhaps, so that we can know the expertise that we will have in these 3 intense working days? Statisticians, of course, we have statisticians. Disaster management. Whoa, statisticians are dominating here, of course.
Not necessarily. Let's wait and see.
Let's see.
Let's see. Oh, this is going great.
Environmental manager, economic statistician. statistical officer. Yeah. Environmental statistician. No, there was a science here. Oh, environmental scientist. Yeah. Great. Meteorologist. So I think we will have great debates here. Although statisticians are dominating, as expected, of course, but I think we also have many people with different backgrounds, and this will lead to very interesting conversations, I'm sure. Monitoring and evaluation, yeah. Environmental data, we need those kind of experts. Yeah, so we have 25 answers. Somebody else? Environmental manager, we have quite a lot of managers. Good, this is good. I think this will help us with the coordination challenges quite a lot. Yeah. Okay. You see, sometimes when you're in this kind of meetings, you feel like you're talking alone with the screen. So at least this kind of tools help us to know that somebody is listening on the other side. Good. Climate change officer. Environmental risk analyst. I think that's amazing. We will have the experts. I mean, we have the expertise that we need for this webinar. We are
Absolutely
well prepared. Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, so more people are entering now their answers. We have 31.
I wonder if there are biologists and ecologists or oceanographers. Like in our team, we have a couple of those.
Yeah, don't be shy. Let's see. Technical planner, demographer.
So still we have more statisticians, huh? Karina and Tim? It didn't go down the proportionate.
But also a lot of people on the environmental manager side. Yes. Economist. I'm an economist. Nobody's perfect.
That's right.
Okay. So I think this already gave us a great overview of who is running this great event. So I will now give the floor back to Pauline. Thank you very much for your participation. It was very interesting to see the variety of participants that we have today. And we are really looking forward to fruitful discussions with you. Thank you very much. Over to you, Pauline.
Thank you very much, Karina. Thank you very much to everyone to participate in that engagement tool. We will use it again, as Karina said, over the next 3 days. So basically now we're going to enter into who we are as a team, what is our experience, as Rolando said at the beginning, and the objectives of the project and of the webinar. Just a quick mention that we're going to be able to discuss into much more details and to actually get to introduce ourselves in the breakout session at the end of today. So no worries about that. So I'm going to briefly share my presentation so that you can have more information about the project. Can you see it? Perfect. So as we said before, we are the Environment and Climate Change Statistic Program. Here are the objectives of our program of work: to promote the development and integration of environment statistics within the national statistical systems of the countries, and also at the same time to support national coordination mechanism between institutions such as NSOs, Ministries of Environment or Climate Change, and sectoral authorities like Ministries of Agriculture, Energy, Water, Disasters, among others, obviously, and also central banks. So this is why Rolando was saying at the beginning that it was very important for us to have that diversity that actually showcased in the presentation that we've just made, to see the diversity of colleagues that we have. Another goal that we have is to continue developing opportunities to exchange experiences, national and regional tools. This is actually why we are here today, so it's a very important part of our work. The last two goals that we have in our program of work is to promote and facilitate the use of international statistical frameworks and recommendations to strengthen basic statistics and compile indicators. This is all the work that we're doing to really promote this use of manuals and tools that are usually approved at the Statistical Commission in New York, and also to share good practices. We will go back to the biblioguide a bit later. And our last goal is to systematize and describe and disseminate representative and comparable environment statistics on a regional scale. So this is all the work that we're doing on ECLAC database, which is called CEPALStat, and that you can access here on the link. And we publish, as many of you do, within the National Statistical Offices, statistical yearbook every year, obviously. So basically, this is the accumulative number of persons that we have trained over the last 4 years. As Ryan said, we were mostly focusing on Latin America. Now we're going to focus mainly and mostly exclusively on non-Spanish speaking Caribbean countries. So we almost have 1,000 participants to our trainings. They are mostly in-person, national country level training, and we hope to have that figure growing over the next years. So what are the results of our work? We've been working, you're going to see that over the next presentations. Basically, environment statistics are present in many SDG indicators. So you can see here that we've been working from SDG 3 on health to SDG 15 on forests and inland biodiversity, depending actually on what is the data that is available at country level, because all our work always starts from what is available at national level and what is the political priority of the countries. Basically, our work is also to be the secretariat of regional coordination mechanism regarding environment, climate change, and disaster statistics. We have something called the Statistical Conference of the Americas. I'm sure many colleagues from the National Statistical Offices are familiar with that setting, but perhaps for colleagues that are coming from other institutions, you're not that familiar. You could find a lot of information online, and one of the tools that the Statistical Conference uses is to have working groups working on specific tools and specific methodologies. So we are secretariat for 2 of these working groups, one on disaster-related statistics with our colleagues from UNDRR, who will be there tomorrow with us. The coordinators countries are Paraguay and Peru. And currently, within that working group, we're working on an assessment of national situation with data availability tools, also a document on what is the role of NSOs in disaster statistics production, and also a very interesting topic, which is the disaster classification, statistical classification, which at the moment don't exist. We're going to talk about that tomorrow morning as well. The other working group we are at the Secretariat is the working group on environment statistics. The coordinator country is Mexico. And at the moment, we are piloting a tool to assess the use of administrative records and geospatial information for environment statistics, again, at national level. So obviously, those working groups are open to all memberships of all the countries here represented. So please feel free to reach out to us if you are interested. So now moving on to why we're here, which is our new project about relevant climate change and disaster indicators for evidence-based policies. So the objective is to enhance the climate change and disaster risk reduction both statistical and institutional capacities of target countries in the Caribbean. And the idea is really to have strengthened national statistical and institutional capacities in countries, as well as regional capacities to both produce data, produce statistics, produce indicators, and also to use them. And this is why it is so important for us to have both national statistical offices or data producers, which are in other institutions, as well as policymakers. This is really key for us. The time span is 2021-2023. The funding is an internal funding that we have in the UN that is called the United Nations Development Account. And as I said before, we will have a two-pronged approach with both regional activities, such as the one we are doing now, and national direct technical assistance to some pilot countries which have shown interest or which might show interest in the future. So basically, the implementation methods that we will use over the next years will be, as I said before, tailor-made technical assistance and remote mentoring. Obviously, due to the current measures to prevent the spread of COVID-19, it will be mostly this year remote activities. We will also use proven regional collaboration tools that have worked very well in Latin America. We will consult with you on the third day about which tools, which collaboration tools you believe are the most effective and the most useful. Also, if you have ideas or suggestions, we are really here to listen. In terms of workshops, we will have dedicated workshops depending also on your need. We will see if either in person or remote, depending on at what time in the project, what point in the project we will organize these workshops. And also we will have webinars. We've been organizing quarterly webinars on specific topics related to climate change and disaster statistics. So I think this will also be consulted with you about which topics you would like to know more and learn about what is going on in the region and also from outside of the region. On the day 3 of the webinar, we will consult you about that. Another thing that is going to be very useful is an online training course. We have experience in terms of training, of online training course, in terms of instructional videos, but also exercises, so that and in either self-paced training courses or also when we have direct webinars between trainers and trainees. It also includes exercising and case studies. And finally, we hope to have the possibility to follow up with on-site experts and local expertise. We know it's very important to build on all the expertise that is in the region, so we will reach out about that a bit later. In terms of stakeholders and scope, as we had said in the previous letters that we sent to your head of entity, in terms of national counterparts, the 3 main ones would be the national statistical offices, the disaster risk reduction authorities, and the environment/climate change authorities. Obviously, the national key stakeholders are much broader. We are open to inviting to attend activities all the stakeholders that you might identify, either from other ministries, universities, research center, civil society organizations, and also private sector actors. We already have established partnerships and potential partnerships with our colleagues from UNFCCC in charge of climate change, UNDRR in charge of disaster risk reduction, UNEP for environment, UNGGIM Americas, who are in charge of geospatial information, CDIMA, 5Cs, CRE, who will be with us on day 3, and OLADE. So as I said before, beyond targeted countries, the project will deliver sub-regional capacity building to all Caribbean member states on that topic. I've already mentioned the partners. I will leave you with the links of the tools that we have already developed, so that you can have them on the website that Karina put on the chat. And so basically, why we are here today and why we are here this week is because these are the objectives of the webinar. This is the first activity of the project, so we are really thrilled to have you all on board. The idea really is to further the understanding that we all have about the opportunities and challenges that the countries have in terms of climate change and disaster indicators production. Also to showcase the latest available evidence related to climate change, explore the links, as I said before, between statistical production and the use of statistics in policy making, and then to take stock of current initiatives to improve all that. We will see that on day 3. So basically, this was a brief summary of who we are, what is the project about, and the objective of the webinar. And now, if you can open all your the program, the agenda of the webinar, we will briefly explain what we're going to do today. So basically, right after this presentation, we're going to have a presentation by Ryan about precisely to take stock of what is the current situation in terms of climate change and disaster statistics in Latin America and the Caribbean. And then we will have a presentation by Mrs. Faustina Wiggins from the CARICOM Secretariat about the regional situation in the Caribbean. Then we're going to have a brief Q&A, and we're going to have a break. We're still calling them coffee break, but obviously it can be just breaks so that you can stretch your legs and do whatever you need to do. Then we're going to move into more a national country level situation with a very interesting presentation by Mrs. Laurie Ray Alain Franklin, the Chief Statistician of the Anguilla Statistics Department. And then that's where we're going to break groups so that we can actually know more about what is the situation in your country, what are your challenges, what are the opportunities. So basically, this is the program for today. And now I will give the floor to Mrs. Ryan Quiroga.
Thank you, Pauline. Let me know if you can see the presentation.
Yes, we can. It's just that you need to go to the display settings.
Okay, thank you, Pauline, for that. So
yes, now it's working.
I will start my stopwatch as well. Thank you very much. So my intention here with this, it's a panoramic presentation as an introduction of what is going on in climate change and disaster and environment statistics in the region, so that you can have a strategic vision, so to speak. As an introduction, I will not go in depth into the different topics. That would be done by subsequent presentations from our colleagues. So the idea is just to give you some of the most important ideas and set the stage for the later presentations. With that, in the first part, I think it's important for us to share with you the evidence of climate change and its impact on the region. This may be very boring to climate change and disaster specialists and managers, but perhaps for our statistician colleagues who don't know as much about the science and the evidence of why is this climate change occurring and how it is impacting us may be important. So, as you know, there is the greenhouse effect, which is the solar radiation cannot escape the planet because of, let's say, a glass ceiling made of greenhouse gases. There are 5 of them, mainly CO2 and also methane, which is very important. And this acts just like a regular greenhouse where you would put your veggies and then the glass will not let the sun that has irradiated inside of that house live, in this case, planet Earth. So this is why we call it the greenhouse effect, in case you didn't know. And because of CO2 importance as the #1 greenhouse gas, we wanted to show you this impressive, we think, graph where, let me know if you can see my cursor in this part of 800,000 years ago. We have all these levels that are varying of the concentrations of previously emitted CO2 by, so to speak, natural processes and humanity before the industrial era, right? So it's never been over 300 ppm, parts per million, over millennia, right? And then all of a sudden, because we started our economic activities in the mode of production that we have that is heavily relying on fossil fuels, we now see that these direct measurements, it's monitored. We have surpassed way what the scientific consensus believe it's acceptable and compatible with human life and with the atmosphere and the weather and the climate behaving properly, which is 350 parts per million. And we are currently at a maximum historical level. In January of this year, which was the latest reading, we have 415 ppm, which is absurd, really. With the Paris Agreement that we have, many countries in our region, of course, signatories or part to this agreement. This is a global agreement to combat climate change from the source, which is the emissions that we produce at the country level, and then those emissions get to the atmosphere, and then we call it statistically the concentrations of CO2. So with emissions and concentrations, this is emissions. If we would to follow business as usual, as it's called in this blue sector here, we are not, absolutely not meeting the two targets that the Paris Agreement has set, which is not to increase the global temperature more than 1.5 degrees centigrade, or even better, 2 degrees centigrade. And for this to happen, instead of going in the usual path that is trended in this movement of the mouse that I'm doing, we should drop of course, significantly. And this is done through the national determined contributions that each country determined at the Paris 15, and we hope that this would be enough. But when we calculated the contribution of the world NDCs, they're not sufficient to meet even the 1.5 or 2 degrees target. And even so, as our Secretary General has said, we are not even meeting the NDCs that actual countries committed to. So in this Climate Ambition Summit in the latest part of 2020, our Secretary General, Mr. Guterres, said that 5 years after Paris, it's 2020, we are still not going on the right direction. If we don't change course, we may be headed for a catastrophic temperature rise of more than 3 degrees this century. Let me explain that these 3 or the 2 or the 1.5 increase refers to a global average temperature. That doesn't mean that in the Caribbean or tropical areas, of course, it's much more than that. We are already in average 1.2 degrees up from the 50s. So it's really a lot. You know, said, I call in all leaders worldwide to declare a state of climate emergency in their countries until carbon neutrality is reached. Carbon neutrality means that you are emitting the same that you're sinking or absorbing into your territory. So your net emissions of carbon dioxide and other GHGs are 0. And we need meaningful cuts now to reduce global emissions by 45% in the year 2030. That's less than 10 years from now, compared with the levels of 2010. So that's the official numbers that the UN is sending to the world leaders to take more ambitious action and increase their commitment to reduce global emissions. And why do we say the global emissions of CO2 and other GHG gases need to be diminished significantly? Because as you can see in this graph, the carbon dioxide, again, we're coming back to concentrations at the global atmosphere, are increasing, as you can see, almost in pace with the temperature, the global temperature, which is anomalies averaged and adjusted to early industrial baseline. So we can see here the increase in the anomaly of the temperatures worldwide. It's an average, let's say it simply like that. And as you can see, they move together. Carbon dioxide is a gas that can absorb and concentrate a lot of heat and a lot of humidity, and this is why then we have all the storms and the hurricanes so strongly, for example, as one of the consequences of the global change, global warming, and the disasters. And as you can see here, and we'll talk about more on the third day, you can see that the same thing is happening in Latin America and the Caribbean. The Caribbean is the blues, thicker line here. And as you can see, we're also increasing the temperature a lot through the years from the 60s to the current years. Another impact that Dr. Harrison from CARICOM mentioned in her opening words, we have here sea level variation. So the sea level is increasing by a rate of 3.3 millimeters per year. So that means that in the accumulative graph that we can see here, you can see perfectly how sea level rise is occurring. This is a global figure. We don't have it for Latin America or for the Caribbean. So just to illustrate what's going on around the world. Same goes for climate change and its impact in oceans and the Caribbean Sea in particular. We see that climate change in this graph is same as ocean change and the coral reefs. As you know, the coral reefs are important not only for tourism, but also for local livelihoods and the economies of local people that lives out, you know, of the biomass or the fishing grounds, let's say, of the presented by this very important and vulnerable ecosystem, which is the coral reefs. So the coral reefs, unfortunately, are being damaged and are dying, some of them, in different waves of the past years. Because of all of these reasons, we have warming oceans, as we already said, the world is warming up, but also the oceans and the seas. We have sea level rise, which leads to sedimentation. We have a change in storm patterns, many changes. So we have stronger and more frequent storms that also damage the coral reefs and other underwater seagrass, for example, ecosystems. We have changes in precipitation. We have increased runoff from the mainland, which comes with sediments and also land-based pollutants. We have altered ocean currents, and finally, ocean acidification, which comes from actually oceans being able to absorb massive amounts of carbon dioxide. So although that is a positive thing for climate change, it's increasing the acidification of the oceans, as we will explain on the third day with more graphs on the numbers and the data and the scientific evidence for that. So we have a small depiction here of the Caribbean region, which is affected by coral bleaching. For example, we have in this degree of colors here, the Caribbean reef area that was exposed to bleaching risk, as it's called, when it's more than 4 degrees per week, that it's standardized at the weeks. At some time between the last years, and 42% of the area of Caribbean coral reefs was exposed to mortality risk, which is set at global temperature, ceteris paribus with all of the other conditions present, weeks at least once in that same period. So as you know or may not know, we have the healthy corals, and they have bleached corals, and when the impacts of all of these phenomena together working against the life of these symbiotic relations between animals and algae in these carbonate structures, then we have the death of the corals. So anyways, going to the disasters, occurrence and impact, of course, as already mentioned before me, the Caribbean, Latin America is in a very asymmetrical position when it comes to not producing GHGs or CO2 very highly, but in turn receiving the impact as a very highly vulnerable area of climate change. The Caribbean only emits 0.3% of all global GHGs equivalent. Latin America and the Caribbean together, it's between 7 and 8%. So as you can see, it's more industrialized countries that produce the effect, the emissions and the concentrations of climate change substances in the atmosphere, but we are the ones who receive the big impact. So between 70 and 2020, 91% of disasters in the Caribbean were originated in meteorological and hydroclimatic phenomena such as drought, floods, storms, and tropical hurricanes. And one of the unique features of the Caribbean is that disasters may engulf an entire country and be of a magnitude that outstrips that of any other region. For example, during the 2017 hurricane season, the total cost of destruction wreaked by Hurricane Irma and Hurricane Maria in the British Virgin Islands and St. Martin exceeded 100% of GDP of those countries. So there you can have some metrics about the economic cost reported of the impact of this very extremely extreme hurricane season in 2017. And we also have the Bahamas after Dorian in 2019. So just to give you an overview of all the Latin American and Caribbean region, you can see here that since 1900, we have put together these numbers from MDAT, which is one of the sources that we use at the global level. And you can see how the progression of the occurrence in terms of number of disasters occurrence. You can see how the trend is growing, especially from the 70s onwards, which is the same date that we see the highest concentrations and emissions of CO2 and GHGs, and also the most increased in global temperatures. Now, we have a typology here that's going to be explained later by my colleague, Alberto, but MDAT has a classification, and we put it in great terms so it's more readable at 1 or 2 digits. This is 2 digits, which is hydrological types, meteorological types, where storms and hurricanes are, and that corresponds to that blue parts of the bars. And then we have climatological, and finally geophysical, which are earthquakes and mass movements, etc. And as you can see here, the most important types of disasters occurred in the Caribbean, according to this database, are meteorological, hydrological, and climatological. As I already said, it's 90% of the accumulated number of disasters of the last decades. Now, these occurrences, of course, have an impact on people, which is this graph here. And as you can see, of the latest decades, we have been increasing the number of people affected from 7 to 22 million, sorry. But thankfully, we have an increase and then a decrease on the number of human casualties or human deaths that were caused by these disasters. Now, the total cost of damages and losses related to disasters in the Caribbean reached $137 billion. From here, you can see 90% or 91% again are related to climate change. But we have to be very careful using this data from MDAT, because these economic cost statistics are estimated and portray only one part of the story, since only MDAT 63 or so, that means 37% of the countries that have experienced the disaster do not contain economic cost data. And this situation is worse in developing countries. That is why ECLAC has expertise and have produced a handbook where you can learn, and perhaps your country has already received since 2015, a damage and loss assessment mission. 9 had taken place in the Caribbean region since 2015. all of them associated with hurricanes. And these cooperations were carried out in Anguilla, Bahamas, Belize, the British Virgin Islands, San Martin, Turks and Caicos. And the last one was estimating the economic cost, damages and losses caused by Dorian in the Bahamas that caused 3.6 billion alone. In the coming months, ECLA will publish the database with the results of this disaster assessment, and it will be a unique database since it will allow to see the effects of the events in different economic sectors and services. And here is the handbook, and of course we will probably have a presentation on that methodology if you're interested. So what do you do when you want to inform about climate change? You break it down as the FDS states in different boxes according to the sequence. Dr. Harrison also mentioned this in her introductory words. And we have climate process, climate evidence, climate change impacts and vulnerability, and then mitigation and adaptation. And within those boxes, you have little, so to speak, statistical topics. And within those topics, you have variables. Problem is that in our region and most of the developing world, more data is available where less priority, let's say politically, is installed. So we have more data on what we emit and much less data on the impacts and on the adaptation. And here we have more of the same, but at a more deep level. For example, here we have statistics. Within these little boxes, we have statistics. So these are topics, and then we have statistics. And climate change impacts and vulnerability, we have some, but sea level rise, for example, is very hard to get for the Caribbean region, for example. We only have those for the global level, but perhaps in this project we can explore how to work together on that. So just giving examples on how to break down the sequence of disasters on the same manner as climate change. And you can see here that we have disaster preparedness and disaster risk reduction, and some very useful statistics on variables that you can measure. In bold, you have the ones that we have more available in the region. And then we have the disaster occurrence. So what is the type of disaster, denomination, localization, magnitude, date, duration, and all of those statistics we can actually find in countries, including the Caribbean. And then we have the disaster impacts. So the disaster occurs, then it has an impact, and then we have the number of variables that involve the ones that are more commonly available, but we also have the disaster preparedness and disaster risk reduction, which is not so much available. As all of my predecessors, thank you, I heard that, I've already said, the environment, climate change, and disaster statistics are very, very much needed for national plans and policies, but also for international policy targets that are agreed. For example, the SDG, we need 70% for all the targets and goals. We need environment statistics, climate change statistics, and disasters. And for 50% of the indicators, for Sendai and Paris 2015, we have 100% of them covered by what we are presenting. So our pillar, the environmental, climate change, and disaster pillar of sustainable development, is the least developed in all of them. And we call the 3 waves, in which ECLAC has put a special effort starting decades ago with economic statistics and national accounts, which is still a work in progress, and we're still supporting countries in this, as Dr. Harrison already mentioned, and this economic statistics wave is continuing. And then we have social statistics all together with economic continuing up to present time, and then we started working on the 2000 decade with different countries on the environment sort of statistics domain, and we're surfing that wave, we say. Here, I will leave this to you. It's the road and the way in which we have advanced from nothing, so to speak, 20 years ago, and to a lot of advances that we have in the region. but many challenges remain, and we are focusing on the challenges and how to overcome them with the opportunities on the third day. But I'll leave just this slide. You know these things, how institutionally and the collaboration among institutions and the strengthening of institutions that have a unique, dedicated environment, climate change and disaster statistics unit, and also the statistical. The methodologies are work in progress, and we still need to do more about being able to provide capacity building, for example, through this project with all of our partners to overcome these challenges. And with that, I thank you so much for your attention. And I get back to Pauline to continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Thank you very much for sticking to the time. I hope this presentation was really an important introduction for all of you. As Ryan mentioned, I'm sure there were many things that you already knew, but we needed to have all a common knowledge before started working. So our next presenter is going to focus more on the Caribbean activities that have been happening over the past years, in particular related to climate change and disaster statistics. So I will now give the floor to Mrs. Faustina Wiggins from the CARICOM Secretariat. Faustina, you already have the ability to share your screen. At the moment it's loading, and now you can see we can see your presentation. So perfect, over to you.
Thank you and good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Yes, I will be presenting, as you mentioned, the regional situation of climate change and disaster statistics in the Caribbean, in particularly focusing on the CARICOM sub-regional experience in producing its first climate change statistics publication. Just to give you a bit background of our involvement in environment statistics, this began under a UNSD CARICOM project, which aimed to strengthen the capacity of member countries and other regional CARICOM secretariat to compile social, gender, and environment statistics for conference follow-up. And at that time, only one country was producing environment statistics, and that's Belize, and Jamaica had commenced some work in that area. At the launch of that project, a number of core indicators and statistics for environment statistics were identified by member countries to be compiled, and those were considered to be critical to the Caribbean or CARICOM situation. Some of the outputs of that project was the first regional publication, the CARICOM Environment in Figures publication, and also a number of technical assistance activities in countries and training in information technology, which was at the time limited, and equipment provision and support from international experts. Post that project, it was considered that the compilation of environment statistics need to be sustained, and therefore a CARICOM advisory group on statistics was formed, and the development of the CARICOM program in environment and social gender statistics to encourage the compilation of data at the regional and national level began. Under this CARICOM program, that is, a number of capacity building activities were undertaken, including the documentation of metadata, the adoption of the FDS. A number of training workshops were held in collaboration with the UNSD and funded by various IDPs, including the World Bank and the European Union. A number of in-country technical assistance activities were held, which focused on interagency collaboration and the establishment of a technical working group for the development of environment statistics. The first meeting was held virtually in 2016 with representatives from Antigua, Barbuda, Jamaica, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Suriname, Bermuda, BVI, and Turks and Caicos Islands. The first meeting, the outputs from the first meeting, including the terms of reference and a work plan. We also did an assessment of data availability by country, by member country, and indicators. Now, this is a list of our core environment indicators It's currently a work in progress because we are mapping these indicators to various frameworks such as the CARICOM program, the FDES, the CARICOM core, SDGs, sorry, and the CSMDG indicators. We are currently involved in an Italian project, also an IDB project, which focuses on the capacity building in statistics. This project is funded by the Italian Agency for Development Cooperation and implemented by the Italian National Institute of Statistics, ISTAT. And this project involved a technical assistant visit to member countries. We have done work in Jamaica and Suriname already. In addition, the Italian project is complemented by the Support to Statistical Capacity CARICOM Countries Initiative, which is funded by the IDB. Both of these projects are aimed at providing the Regional Statistics Program and National Statistics Office with being able to compile a range of complete and reliable information concerning the fields of agriculture, gender, and environment. The outputs from both of these projects would include training workshops on environment statistics, training workshops on the SDG frameworks, technical assistance activities to enhance the NSO's role within the national statistical system, an integrated database, protocols for the exchange of data on environment and other areas, and the contribution to the CARICOM online knowledge base of these areas. These are a few of the recommendations from the Italian project so far, that countries need to, and at a regional level, there needs to be organization of the metadata, mapping of the methodology, definitions, data sources, data quality checks in environment statistics, and connecting these to the SDGs, climate change, and hazardous events. There needs to be strengthening of the knowledge at the regional and at the national statistical system level on SDG definitions, metadata, and the linkages between environmental indicators, climate change indicators, Sendai indicators, and SDG metadata, data, and indicators. That there needs to be stronger MOUs between NSOs and agencies, and better use of the data that are already available from existing administrative sources, and to encourage countries to produce a minimum set of core environmental indicators. To our work on climate change statistics, we have produced a total of 4 CARICOM Environment in Figures publication, as Dr. Harrison mentioned, and our first climate change statistics publication. And this publication we term as largely exploratory. This is based on the fact that climate change is of high importance, as was mentioned to this CARICOM SIDS. And it is hoped that this publication will lay the groundwork for future work in this area. Our approach involved the use of the FDES 2013 framework and the IP framework. The tables which were we had previously published and collected data for on environment statistics, these were rearranged under the 5 components: drivers, impacts, adaptation, mitigation, and vulnerability. And new tables were identified where required, and the series that for those tables on the environment statistics were updated up to 2019 in some cases. The lessons we learned from this exercise was that strengthening environment statistics can lead to the production of climate change statistics. The following slides will present some of the highlights from that publication, including some of the tables that we have, including carbon dioxide emissions under the component of drivers, also energy production and supply and consumption data, which we used some trade data as proxy. I will mention that in a bit. Under impacts, we have the impacts to forested area, total unprotected forest area, impacts on freshwater resources. On the adaptation, we included a table on the CARICOM participation in multilateral environmental agreements related to the area of climate change, and the information on the generation of waste by source. On the mitigation, we have the proportion of population with primary lines to clean fuels and technology. On the vulnerability, we have information for just one table on the percentage of the total population served by municipal waste collection. These are some of the tables. We have information on climate dioxide emissions, as you can see, some good data from Barbados, Grenada, Dominica, I can mention, Jamaica also, as you can see, with Grenada having a full series of data up to 2014. In terms of a forested area, we source this information from the FAO. We have at least 4 data points for all of the countries. This is a chart showing that Suriname and Guyana, of course, have some of the highest forested area as a percentage of the total land area, followed by Dominica and St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Belize. This shows the average temperature per annum. As you can see, some high temperatures in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, some variations for St. Lucia and St. Kitts also. This table shows the information that we have for hazardous events and disasters. We have information on the type of disasters by country, the name of the disaster, the date started, the casualties by different categories, the population affected. As you can see, there are a number of data gaps, but this is the information that we have currently, and the damage, the total damage, estimated in most cases in US $1 million. Okay, in terms of the challenges and best practices, as I mentioned, there were a number of major data gaps. So this is the data that we have on the drivers. All of the topics were covered except the agriculture, forested, and other land use drivers. We have very little information on impacts, mitigation, and in particular vulnerability. To source the data, we used information from the National Communications to the UNFCCC and proxy data for energy statistics in the area of trade, and the use of international sources for disaster statistics. Remember, we also have a technical working group on environment statistics. Some of the members are participating in this meeting, and our takeaway from this exercise is that strengthening interagency collaboration within the NSS would improve climate change and disaster statistics. So I thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Faustina, for the presentation, and again for sticking to the time. So now we're going to open the floor for questions or comments or participation from all of you. So you can raise your hand and we can give you the floor. So we're going to wait a little seconds in case you have questions either for Ryan or for Faustina. So it seems that we don't have any questions at the moment. So
excuse me, Pauline, I raised my hand. This is Rena.
Oh, hi, Rena. How are you? I didn't see it. Go ahead.
So first, I'd like to apologize that we joined late. There was a mix-up with the timing. New York, we were supposed to join at 10 New York time, so I apologize. I missed a few of the opening remarks. So I would just like to commend the CARICOM Secretariat for the excellent work that they've done since the UNSD CARICOM project that was described by Ms. Wiggins, and then I'm sure Dr. Harrison speech I missed must have mentioned that as well. And these achievements, I think, is the four, regional publications. And also, I think I'd like to mention the very interesting and commendable creativity of the approach in moving from first environment statistics to the first regional climate change statistics publication. I also believe this is a best practice that countries can follow, and for information from other parts of the world, this is also happening in other regions. So first, from establishing environment statistics, and then moving to climate change, which can be considered a subset. And I would also like to stress that one should not attempt to reinvent the wheel, in the sense that this good foundation that CARICOM has set in terms of the regional publications, the regional list of indicators. I mean, we have worked very closely with them for the past 20 years. This should be used as the basis for continuing the work. And I think Ms. Wiggins presented a very useful and comprehensive assessment by indicator and by country, which served to highlight the data gaps, which of course still exist in this field. And I really encourage that the support of this project, specifically in disaster and climate change, can really be targeted in this direction. So really going the data gaps and focusing, I think, on these specific areas. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rina. Yes, the time is a bit complicated with so many countries on board. I don't know if there is any other hand or any other questions or comments. No? Okay. Otherwise, then we are just in time for the break. So we're going to have a 15-minute break, and we'll be back right after for the rest of the session and the presentation from Anguilla. So see you in 15 minutes. I hope you had a nice break and that now you are more energized and ready for the second half of this webinar. So now we're going to hear from a country, from the National Statistical Office of Anguilla, Mrs. Lori Ray Elaine Franklin. Can you hear me? We can see your screen, we can see your presentation. That's working perfectly.
Good day.
We cannot hear you at the moment.
Good day. Can you hear me now?
Perfectly. We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Okay, I'll begin. Good day, everyone. Thank you to UNECLAC for the opportunity to participate.
Your microphone is on, but we cannot.
I could hear perfectly, Pauline. Maybe you have it.
Perfect.
Me
now
too.
I
Yes,
can hear
me
you.
too. I hear.
Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, so over to you, Mrs. Elaine Franklin. Thank you so much for agreeing to sharing your experience about disaster and climate change statistics.
Okay, good day, everyone. I want to first say thanks for the opportunity to participate in this project kickoff webinar. It is truly an opportunity to share and learn from others to assist in the development of an approach which may best suit each country's specific circumstances. Anguilla works closely with CARICOM on the area of environmental statistics. So I'll proceed into the presentation, which is more about an opportunity that occurred after an event and how we have sought to integrate it into our work program. This slide. Okay. So here's a little overview of the presentation, and I'll move straight along. Anguilla is a very small country at the northern tip of the Leeward Islands. So most of the time, it's an island that is forgotten. I listened intently as the presentations were being made, and for most of them, Irma did hit the other countries, but Irma seemed to have devastated Anguilla, and much wasn't said about that. But it's so tiny that you may think it is St. Martin where the arrow is pointing. It is just above St. Martin. And the context of the presentation would be that it's located 16 miles. I'm trying to get rid. It's located 16 miles. It's 16 miles long, and it's something to think about when we look at Irma and the length of Irma. We are 16 miles long and 3.5 miles at our widest distance across. The area is 35 square miles, and it is one main island with a number of uninhabited keys, which are used a lot for recreation purposes, tourism, etc. The population, according to our estimates for 2020, was 15,500. And in 2017, it was estimated to be 15,068. Our main language is English, with a growing Spanish language as well. The statistics department is tasked with a mandate similar to many of the other Caribbean countries to collect, to collaborate, to take a census, and generally coordinate. And most of our work centers around B and D. We try to ensure that departments and ministries collecting administrative data during their day-to-day work is done in a format that allows it to be used. And we do that by exposing them to international classifications, definitions, and metadata, because there is an over-reliance or a great reliance on administrative data. And that is why we have started to attempt to coordinate and collaborate with ministries and departments. Our mission in doing so, we strive to provide and produce relevant and quality data, and we continue to work towards that vision. So the impetus, the presentation this morning will focus on our experience to date, the drivers and the process and in general, our experience. In September 2017, to be specific, the 6th of September, Anguilla and a number of the Northern Caribbean islands were hit with Hurricane Irma. It impacted 185 miles per hour, and this became the driver or the impetus for our work in disaster statistics, as you would hear as I go along. It cost us, when the assessment was done by UNECLAC, some estimated cost was over 880.4 million EC dollars, with damages of 507 million. And the private sector suffered mostly. 76% of those damages were in the private sector, and about 23% were in the public sector. The productive sectors were impacted heavily, and the social as well as the infrastructure sustained some impact as well. So that was the driver for the development of what I'm going to speak about now. The literature, ESCAP, the UN Commission, European Commission, and the Sendai report, the literature and reality, more important reality, is that measuring climate change and disaster statistics, as was said before, requires a collaborative approach and is integrated into a number of frameworks. I heard Faustina and Dr. Harrison talk about strengthening our system of national statistics first before we platform or leapfrog into the other areas. And on top of that, in addition to that, it crosses a number of statistical domains and thematic platforms. You have the population, which is domain 1, thematic area 1. You have housing, health, infrastructure, power, water, tourism. All of them are caught up in determining disaster statistics and measuring impact and direct and indirect impact. So the disaster statistics frameworks look at it seeks to use the data from the various thematic areas for before the event, during the event, which looks at the direct impacts, and after the event, all in an effort to manage risks and reduce the risks. It therefore calls for a multi-organizational approach, because disaster risk reduction can be seen as a sectorial perspective. Preparedness, prevention, and mitigation is managed by a cross-section of areas. Response and recovery is the remit of many departments and agencies. Disaster risk can be seen, sectorially, and the competencies for certain areas do not exist within the stats department. Pre-event data exists within other agencies, and disaster management as we usually say, is nationally an area of the responsibility of the whole nation. It therefore goes without saying, and as per the foregoing information, that the measurement, the collection, etc., of disaster statistics is best suited for a multi-organizational approach. So in 2020, this is sometime after Irma, the ASD was asked to develop a proposal under the RESIBIN Statistical Sustainable Energy and Marine Diversity Program. Given the focus, a proposal from the statistical agency had to be creative. And given our experience after Irma, where ECLAC just wanted data, and the only persons that were able to provide some semblance of data was the stats department, even though we were impacted the most after the hurricane. We lost our roof, we lost our building. We still don't have a building, but one thing we had learned was to build resilience, and a lot of our data was stored off premises and online. So we were able to provide a lot of the data. So after that experience, we know statistics isn't usually a very thought about area until the need, not like biodiversity and environmental and climate change. A lot of the focus and the funding goes directly to them from international agencies. But on this occasion, we came up with an approach to get some work in the area of statistics done. So we sought to build on the theme, building resilience through data management and use. And we work closely with the World Bank team on all the stages up to today in terms of rolling this project out. The World Bank was the implementing agency and the European Union was the funding agency. So to date, we have been working with them, and we are really seeing the need for coordination and collaboration across government, private sector, as well as public sector and some associations in the country. So our successes and challenges to date. Best practice, our approach to statistics within the department is to look at an integrated approach where we look at each thematic area and decide about the concept note about it. We look at a work program, we look at the metadata, and we attempt to develop a framework. And this takes into consideration a lot of information cross thematic area as well. And it is best, what we find is working is a working group, making people feel a part of what we're doing and showing them the benefits of the data to them. It may not be today, but it may ease the work down the road. Our challenges, we remain constrained by time. They seem never to be enough hours in a day. Our human resources at the department, and I believe all our working partners, continues to be a challenge. And everyone is competing with their various interests and agendas. So the time that we really want to spend in developing the framework for the disaster statistics is limited, but we need to continue to push on. And maintaining and updating the data sets with the metadata, etc., in the individual departments and ministries, we see as something that has to be integrated into what they do. So it will be a challenge for us to implore on them to update the metadata and keep the metadata current along with the data. So our way forward, we see, is to continue the collaboration with the members of the working group to complete the components of the project and embed it into the statistical work program, as well as get them to embed it in part of their day-to-day work. Strengthen the ties and mutual relationships at the national, regional, and international levels. And here is a perfect example of doing that this morning. Harmonizing and coordinating the collection and production of disaster data and data series while maintaining the metadata and data collection. Supporting efforts to ensure compliance, that is improving laws, etc. We would support the agencies, and continue promotion of the use of data and scientific methods in policy and program design, especially in the area of mitigation and in the area of building solid footings to make decisions. And continue planning and promotion annual awareness in our annual programs of disaster statistics and in general statistics. That's it. Thank you. I'm way within my time. I want to thank CLAC and CARICOM and the other departments in the region, the statistical departments, for the continued support and our collaboration. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Elaine Franklin. That was a very interesting presentation. Actually, we have a question for you from the Central Statistics Office of Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Tyrone Gopal, who doesn't have a microphone working at the moment. So I'm going to read his question for you. Can you say that because of the small island size of Anguilla, coordination amongst various agencies on disaster and other government ministries with respect to the development of environment statistics was made more easier?
At first, one would think so, but all the challenges experienced in larger countries, small island states have to experience and do experience, because what we find is that a few people are doing a lot of the work. So as I said in my culminating slides, everyone has competing interests. So I don't think it becomes easy just because of the size. Our jobs are just as difficult because we kind of, whereas in bigger countries, you may have 5 or 6 statisticians in a section, we have a staff of 7 people to do everything. So I know people tend to make the comment, size small, you can get things done easier. But I would say for us, size small means that we know who we have to engage, but it doesn't make the work, to me, any easier.
Thank you very much for your answer. CARICOM Secretariat has raised the hand. So Dr. Harrison or Faustina Wiggins, go ahead.
Yes, Pauline. First of all, I want to commend Laurie Ray for this effort. And, you know, it is as if she has started into an intermediate, or what should I say, a narrow aspect of the environment statistics, focusing on disaster. And I think that is commendable. I also am happy to see that she is looking at the interagency coordination at the national level. And if she could elaborate on some of the departments that she's working with, that would be appreciated. I also I'm in agreement with her in terms of it's not just about small size, you know, because the theory of relativity is pervasive. You know, one person doing everything. That is what happens in these smaller economies. And finally, I think you had indicated at the standing committee meeting in November that you had some data on environment statistics. And we did send you a request so that I'm just following up in terms of receipt of that data. But once again, a commendable effort in Anguilla. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harrison. So Ryan, you have raised your hand.
Yes, thank you. Miss Eileen Franklin, I wonder if you could also turn your camera on. I know sometimes it doesn't work, but I just wanted everyone in this meeting, 61 people have already joined to, if possible, see you, only if that is feasible for, oh, thank you so very much. Very nice to see you. Thank you. What I wanted to also congratulate on the work that Angela is producing in terms of the presentation that you made. And I am so glad that you did what you presented was going into a lot of higher resolution of the day-to-day activities and how you organize just interagency across government and other institutions in order to be able to work together to produce this data that was needed for the assessment, but for other multi-purpose wise as well. What I want to say is that one of the very important things that we've learned from other Latin American and Caribbean countries is exactly that in this field, that it's a cross-cutting domain of environment, climate change, and disaster statistics, it's impossible to work thoroughly and sustainably with national ownership if you do not work in the way that you have just described. So this speaks very highly of what you accomplished and what you learned, and it's very valuable for our fellow countries in the Caribbean that are speaking and participating in this meeting. So thank you so much for your presentation, and we will look forward to working very closely with you and your government and also civil society. Thanks.
So, Mrs. Aline, I don't know if you have anything to add before closing this part of the webinar.
May I go ahead and answer the questions?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, Dr. Harrison, once again, thanks very much. It is just time omission as it relates to our environmental compendium. We're trying to tidy it up and we'll send it along as soon as possible. There were some missing areas, but I think we can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, so we'll send what we have, and as we go along, we would attempt to update. Some of the departments that we are working with include the Ministry of Infrastructure, Communications, Utilities, and Housing, the Department of Infrastructure, the Health Authority, the Disaster Management Agency, that's a department. We also have on board the telecommunications companies. There are two of them here, and as well as our electricity company. We have on board our water as well, in addition to our environmental health department. We also have included the Department of Natural Resources, and we also have two associations, the Hotel Association and the Chamber of Commerce. The Hotel Association, the hotel industry was really impacted, and the tourism sector after Irma, and we saw it fit that we include them to get a sense of what they would be looking for in terms of data as well, and what they could contribute to us in terms of some data. And the ACOSI, the Anguilla Chamber of Commerce, would give us the perspective from a number of businesses within the country. So those are some. We also have on board physical planning, which we work closely with the GIS department there, and lands and surveys. We have fisheries and agriculture, and I think our IT department as well. I think those are the ones that we have on board with this particular project and that we need to continue to engage as we go along. I hope that answers the question. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. That was very, very comprehensive, very interesting. I noticed that the inclusion of the private sector is really important because they can give a lot of data, in particular, as you said, in terms of tourism and hotel impacted. So very, very interesting. So I can't see any more hands in the chat. So what I would suggest is to move on to the breakout group now. So I'm gonna share briefly a presentation about what we're gonna do over the next half hour. So Sami, can you please give me the sharing option so that I can share my presentation, please? Yeah, can you see it now? So as I said before, the idea now is to break out into 5 groups to understand better the national situation of climate change and disaster statistics in your country. So you also going to have opportunities to ask each other more questions, as you just did in the chat, in the plenary. So it's going to be a much smaller settings to actually go into much more details. So basically, we're going to have 25 minutes. We're going to, our colleague Sami will create 5 aleatory groups with 1 moderator in each group. And then each participant will actually role play, because you're going to be both an interviewer asking your colleagues information about what's the situation in their country, and an interviewee when you're going to explain about what is the situation in your own country. So there will be a rapporteur in each group, and then the notes will be sent to Mrs. Janet Hagen Martin, so that she can collect all of them for the final report of the workshop. So these are just examples of questions you might want to ask the colleagues. What is the situation of environment statistics in the country? Because we know that there is a lot in common between environment statistics and climate change and disaster statistics, and also to talk a bit more about how they are producing the data of the statistics, of what are the challenges they are facing. So basically, these were the information we wanted to give before creating the working groups. I'm gonna give you just these step-by-step instructions. First, introducing each of the participants, obviously, and taking stock of which countries are in the groups. For the colleagues that are not coming from a country, perhaps an international organization, please feel free to join, obviously, the groups and keep asking questions. Then a second part when you're gonna all ask questions about each other, and then a brief summary of the main takeaways by the group rapporteur. And then when we go back to plenary, there won't be an actual input with all the notes, because they will be sent, your written inputs will be sent to Janet, as I mentioned before. But then Karina will ask for your feedback about the breakout through Slido, as we did at the beginning of the session. So basically on my side, that's it. I would see you back in 25 minutes, not 15. And so Sami, if you'd like, you can send us to the group now.
John, ¿me escuchas?
Dime. To the plenary. I hope the exchanges in your groups were interesting. and you got a chance to know a bit better the other colleagues that are on the call, and know a bit better the national situation in the countries. We're going to go into much more detail on day 3, when we're actually going to go into looking on what's the data availability in the countries, and the self-assessment tool that we will present. So I'm gonna now give the floor to Karina, so that we can get some feedback from you about this session. I remember that the rapporteur will send the notes that you've been taking to Jeanette. We're gonna give her email in the chat right now, so that you can send your notes. Thank you so much, and over to you, Karina. You're muted, Karina.
Okay, so as we did in the morning, I will be sharing a link with you. This is for a Slido question. Give me just a couple of seconds. I will put it in the chat. And oops. Okay. So click on that link, and then you will see a couple of questions just to get your insight from the discussion that we just had. And I will be displaying the answers on my screen. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Please
good.
speak louder. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it better now? Yeah, good. So first question, I know that you're all very tired. It has been a long morning, but we would like to hear from you. What are the 3 elements that can lead to a successful production of climate change and disaster statistics? What have you heard in the discussions that we just had? Perhaps some best practices, some ideas that you can share with us from your country, from the discussions itself. Yeah, so whether you have heard that from another country, or there were perhaps some international organizations also in the discussions where you participated. Please feel free just to share some ideas, and let's see. Did you all get the link? Otherwise, you can also scan this QR code with your mobile phone, or just enter into slido.com with this number, and you will be able to see that. Great, so we have already some answers here. Interagency coordination again, establishment of data collection protocols, strengthening the national statistical system. That sounds very similar to the conversation we also had, where we went into more detail about the experience in Suriname. Agreements on metadata, exactly. So something that helps us to strengthen the collaboration among the different institutions. Collaboration, cooperation, coordination between departments and agencies. Great. So good. Establishment of guidelines for collecting environment statistics. I think we have great of material to work on that. What else is arriving? Gaps assessment. Yeah, that will be part of the activities of this project in some of the target countries. So I'm sure we will be able to share further on that after this webinar and in the following activities. Documented and agreed institutional arrangements, reduce the reporting burdens. Yes, institutions spend their time just reporting to different agencies. integrate various ministries and organizations, relied on evidence-based research using existing archive records and not duplicate the work. So coordination is key. Great. So I think we can go to the next question. So ranking, I mean, sometimes we hear the typical challenges that we face in the different countries. And we would like to know which of those challenges you consider are the most prominent in your country or in the region that you could consider. This is the most important one. Or this, I will place it as a second one. So for example, if data and statistics are not produced in my country, or is it that data and statistics exist in my country but are not available for the use, or they lack the quality that is required? Or is it that there is lack of technical capacities? How would you rank these different challenges? Which are the most important or most common in your country? Let's see. Production is a problem. Seems that availability is also going up. Yeah, so far we have 5 answers. 6, I think this will take some time to load and people to choose their options. Yeah, so I think availability is definitely one of the most important challenges to be addressed. And it will also help us to not duplicate the work, right? Sometimes data is already there and other stakeholders do not know about it. And then we ended up producing, again, the same information. Lack of technical capacities to produce the indicators. We will have a complete section on that tomorrow. So I hope we can really engage in a discussion on this. Good. This is moving faster. Okay. Thank you very much for keeping engaged. I know it has been a difficult morning. Okay, and now one last question. What are your 3 main takeaways from the breakout sessions? Did you enjoy it? Was it maybe a good space for exchange? You learned something new? Was it maybe boring? You don't like us to repeat this breakout session? What did you took away from this short discussions? We thought it was a good idea.
Thank you so much. Why am I following her?
Oh, hi, we have somebody else on the other side. Lack of mic and camera. Oh, I'm gonna make sure that nobody's left behind. Common challenges. Good. Exchange of ideas, good platform to share. Yeah, thank you. Time too short. I know time is always a problem. Informative. It seems that it was informative. I hope it was also useful. Engaging.
Okay.
Interesting. But we need to do this. Yes, we need different levels of progress. Yeah, and that's what we are here to learn from each other. Importance of sharing. Educational. Good. It's very rewarding to hear from your side. How did you feel? What did you think? As I said before, sometimes it's just awkward to talk to a computer. Good. Okay. similar challenges progress. So I think for most of us, this was a good exchange of ideas. It was despite the limitations, engaging, it was informative, and I'm happy to see that it was interesting and that we found common challenges, because this will set up the basis for this work and the following activities. So I think here I will stop, Pauline, and then maybe give the floor back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Karina, for the poll. Thank you very much to all the participants for keeping engaged after that long morning. Thank you very much for your feedback and for sharing your experiences. We will send this afternoon more information about tomorrow breakout sessions as well. Then we will see you tomorrow with the same link at the same time. And if you have any questions, please feel free to let us know. I think we still have a few minutes in case you have any questions or anything to raise. Otherwise, we will see you tomorrow. I don't know, Ryan or Dr. Harrison, in case you have anything to add before closing.
Just a quick question. What time does the session begin?
It depends on your country of residence. That is the issue. Where are you?
Well, Turks and Caicos, and I came on at 10 o'clock, but it had started already.
Okay. So if it has started already, it must be that it must start at 9 for you. We're going to check again the timeline that we sent at the beginning of the agenda.
Yes, it did say 10, but apparently it was 9 o'clock.
Okay, so sorry about that. We had mixed up with all the UTC -5, 4, 3. I mean, we are in 4 different time zones, so it was quite difficult. So sorry about that, and hopefully tomorrow it will be the correct time for you.
Thank you.
Pauline, maybe just briefly before we leave, I know that you shared a link to the participants so that they can register in the mailing list or the official mailing list for the project.
Great. Thank you very much, Karina, for reminding me of that. We have created a Google form that is on the, I'm going to send it again on the chat to everyone. And so we would ask you to fill it out. For the ones that had security issues to enter the form, please let us know, or just send us the information by email. It's just to have an official mailing list for the project and know who you are. So thanks, Karina.
Okay, so from my end, I would also encourage you, because there are many, I think I calculate about half of our delegates and participants from country do not have a camera, or their mics are not working, so you can put anything on the chat right now if you have any comment or question or pressing issue. And you can do that as well. We will stay for a little while after you all leave for your other engagement, so we can read about it. It is very, very important for us to get your feedback. And in that regard, please feel free. We're doing all of this for you. And another request from our end is for you to please turn on your cameras, those that have it. It is not going to affect the, say, bandwidth of the whole webinar that we are conducting. It may affect yours, of course, and in that part we understand, but if you're able to share your beautiful human being as an image that we can see and relate to, that's something fantastic for us, because we feel very lonely here in this ECLAC planet with our colleagues. Here is Chris responding from Curacao. Welcome, Chris. So please, Belize, fantastic, sir. If anybody wants to turn on their cameras at this point, that would be very, very nice. And we can even get a screenshot, a print screen of whomever can do it. That's so nice for us to see you. Thank you. Yes, great. Janet, Rena, Emil, we can see you. Great, fantastic. So it was an intense day, just as Kika said in the beginning. Okay, and we are all very tired. I know that. You will all see the presentations Dr. Harrison, great. I haven't seen you for so long, although we've been in meetings together. So that's absolutely great. If we can have a screenshot from the team, that would be fantastic. Before we say goodbye, once again, as just my colleague Pauline said, if anybody wants to say anything or everything in here, just relax and be friendly. We are welcoming all of your participation, all of your contributions to the discussion. And it's great to see you. Unfortunately, we cannot meet face to face for a while. So with that, we thank you so very much for your attention today. I think it was very productive. This is what is the feedback that we've been getting, and we'll see you back tomorrow at the same time. We will check again the time zones. Before you leave, perhaps Karina, you can just paste in the chat the time zones that we have in the beginning of the agenda for the countries, except for Turks and Caicos, of course, which was wrong. And we can have that as a main entrance. You can always calculate back from the Santiago time, which is 11 o'clock a.m. This is right now 2 p.m. So it's from 11 to 2 p.m. in Santiago time. And from there, you can calculate using Google. You say, what time is right now in Santiago, Chile? And then you can also calculate by yourself for any other meeting as well. So with that, I get back to you, Pauline, and I hope to see you tomorrow again. And thank you for your participation today.
Thank you very much to all of you, and see you tomorrow then. Bye.
Bye-bye. See you tomorrow.
Everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.